Hey, welcome everybody. We are here. It is Tom and James, and it is Friday. And James, what a week it has been again. Yeah, I mean, we do this every week. It's talking about the events of the week, talking about the events of the day, talking about the events of the hour, and exciting things. James, we had a vice presidential debate the other evening. I will talk a little bit about that. Well, I also want to ask you this. You and Don Stewart did a program the other day, The Two Americas. I want to talk about the two Americas. I want to get our viewers to get a handle on the two Americas, the direction that you see things going, some of the things that you and Don shared. I'll throw in some things also. And then also we're watching this issue going on in New York City between de Blasio and Governor Cuomo and the Hasidic community, Jewish communities in New York City. And are we looking at anti-Semitism? So all of those going. James, great to have you here.
You too, bro. So I have to ask you, it looks like you're in Joe Biden's basement. What's the story?
Okay. So I am in the basement. You're correct. I'm not in the studio. I am in the basement somewhere in the middle of the country. And
that's all you're going to say?
I'm not going to give you all of my location. Notice the color of my hat. See it? What color is that hat, James?
I see it. So is it a Trump rally that you're
I'm not going to tell you too much, but I will tell you this. The red is very significant where I am, but I'm in a basement in the middle of the country, and this is going to be a fun program today. I do plan on coming out of the basement as soon as we're done talking, but I needed a place that was quiet enough. Quiet enough to get away. And
I thought you were going to tell me where you were.
All right, I'm in Nebraska.
Oh, you're in Nebraska. Okay, so what are you doing in Nebraska? That's the more important thing.
You know, I can't tell you what I'm doing. If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Wow.
So let's
get crazy, bro.
So maybe it'll just come out. You know, sometimes I just say things and I go, why did I say that? That could happen on this program. Well, because I know you say things. And
the experienced interrogator in me is going to try to get it out of you now.
This is going to be fun. Are you ready? VP debate. What'd you think of the VP debate?
I think Pence did a fantastic job. Here's my view on vice presidential debates. My view on vice presidential debates is the whole purpose of those debates is to contend for the president, right? Mm-hmm. And typically VP debates don't swing an election. But what they can do is make strong the base in many ways. And in some cases, I think they can affect the independents. I mean, there is a possibility of that. I think what's been a bit astounding for me is the idea that when you go and you examine what had happened with the first debate, one of the things that, I got to turn this phone off. These guys don't know I'm filming. That's crazy. Hold on one second. Hold on just 1 second, okay? I'm in the middle of filming, bro, so I can't answer. I answered, but the whole world is actually watching me answer this phone. But it's been like an hour, even though I said call me in 5 minutes. So I can't hear you. He just hung up on me. He hung up on me.
No, that's good. Because we're not. This isn't getting edited out, which makes it
it's so
better.
Awesome. It makes it better, doesn't it?
It does make it better.
I told this guy to call me in 5 minutes, and that was an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, you know what?
So I just felt the need to just tell him, "Hey, bro, what's going on?"
No. Do you have any friends that are losers?
No.
Am I allowed to say that?
I don't have friends. I don't have friends that are losers.
That is okay. All right, praise the Lord, because that's just a mean word. Okay, back to the VP. I'm probably going to get all written up on comments about that. But let me ask you, back to the VP debate. You're making a great case. The vice president is doing a few things. They're there on behalf of the president, and also they can have an influence on the independents or the undecideds.
Yeah,
that's where the phone rang.
Right. So here's the thought. So the thought here is, and going back to looking at what happened at this debate, I think that when we look at Mike Pence, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He stood in the gap. He said some pretty incredible things. I think my favorite quote of the night, there were probably two quotes that were my favorite. And of course, I'm not going to directly quote it. I'm kind of paraphrasing it. But my two favorite quotes of the night, and they were really, really good, was the fact that he says, I'm unapologetically defending life. In other words, I'm not going to apologize for being pro-life. And Very much loved him saying that. The other one that I loved is he told Kamala, listen, you're entitled to your opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And
Yeah.
that was a good one. I mean, I thought that
yeah.
was a really good line. I think Kamala Harris is a liar. I think that she is the most liberal, absolutely liberal senator in the country, maybe the most liberal senator we've ever had, far more liberal than, or far more hard left than even Bernie Sanders. I think that she's not black. She calls herself African American. She's not. She's half Haitian and she's half Indian. Yet she goes and contends and continues to scream about the fact that there were some Supreme Court justices that are not, or there were many justices that the president had appointed that were not black. That was one of her points when she was asked if she was going to stack the court. Her response was, well, I'm offended by the fact that President Trump hasn't selected any black nominees, which I think is absolutely an offensive statement as it is. Since when do we start selecting nominees because they're black? Since when do we start selecting nominees because of the color of their skin? I thought we selected nominees because of what they stood for and because of the content of their character. She is a person that is a blatant, hardcore racist. She hates our country. She hates the people of our country. She's arrogant. She's proud. And quite frankly, she does not belong in office. She really shouldn't be in office. The worst part about this is if she wins, if they win, she is going to be the next president of the United States. People don't get that because Joe Biden will be gone within the first month or two. And the other thing, too, that I think is important to note, and you know, I think it's worthwhile saying this. Some people say, oh, well, it's just a semantic thing, or it's just a bit of a slip up. But I don't think it was a slip up when she constantly referred to herself as the Harris Biden administration. She constantly said that during the debate. I'm also a little bothered by the fact that there were a lot of people that made comments about flies or a fly landing on Mike Pence's hair. I think it's just completely absurd that they make statements like that. But I think you kind of have to go to make statements like that and make those kinds of insults because the man was completely professional. He was through and through. And I really appreciated what he did. I appreciated the fact that he gave the answers the way that he gave his answers. And I also appreciated the fact that he, at certain points, spoke through the time that the moderator had allotted him because the moderator wasn't timing things correctly. But I will say this about the moderator. I will say that for a left-leaning woman, I was actually kind of impressed with how fair she was. I don't think she was completely fair. I do think that she was still leaning towards the left, but for a left-leaning person, I think she did better than I expected her to do. And I was actually happy with the way she handled the moderation.
So she did a lot better than Chris Wallace did.
Oh, Chris Wallace is just a hard left-leaning nut. I'm sorry. Chris Wallace is not as talented as his father, and his father was a loser. Forgive me for saying that. I hate to say that, but it's just awful I don't even understand why Fox News allows him to be an anchor who claims to be somebody who is neutral. He's not neutral. He's hard left, always has been, and always will be.
Yeah. When I look at this debate and think of the things, I thought, Pence did a fantastic job of presenting the facts on what's really out there. He presented the facts that Kamala Harris couldn't present, but also presenting the facts for what Trump has actually accomplished, which is necessary. There's an unbelievable amount of things that Trump has accomplished that really, I think of this, you go to the UAE deal and Israel deal, and then you look at that, now you have these other countries are jumping on board. This is one of the most phenomenal things that's taken place in my generation or ever. When you start looking at the United States and the Mideast and Israel and those other countries, this is really incredible. If that was done during the days of Obama, he would have been hailed as the Messiah. But since it was Trump, they can't say anything good about it. If Trump comes up with a vaccine for coronavirus, they're not going to take care. They won't take the vaccine for that reason, regardless of what a person's position is on a vaccine. What you see is just the vitriol. They can't give Trump a nod for any accomplishment that he's done. But what I do like is this. One of the things you point out with the moderates or the people that are undecided, there were a lot of them that were favorably influenced in the way of Trump because of the debate last night.
Yeah.
I read some of those things online, and it was really interesting where, from what I understood from reading some of the comments regarding the independents, was Kamala Harris came off as somebody who was unprepared and snarky. And, I'm thinking, you already mentioned it, I can't imagine her. She will become the president of the United States. This is just unbelievable to think that she would become the president of the United States if Joe Biden is no longer president. I believe you're right. I think he's just set up as a puppet, and he's going to be discarded as soon as he would get the win, if he gets the win.
Yeah, he's no doubt a Trojan horse. I mean, that's really how you want to describe it. And I think that you can't really provide good analysis on the VP debate unless you go back to the original presidential debate, because again, me and you have some slightly different views on that debate, but I do have to bring up a few other things, because it's funny that you mentioned independence. And I know that there are some people that say, well, you can't win a state like California without independence. And for the most part, I think I'd have to agree with that, right? I mean, I think that that's a correct statement. However, let me just simply say this. Let me say that when you are seeking to win a race based on this electoral college, this race is not going to be won by independents. Okay. Forgive me for saying that. A lot of people say, oh, that's not the case. Just like I say that this race is not going to be won by black voters. It's just not going to be the case. The Democratic Party might help win their position with black voters, but even then, black voters are completely changing. The way this race is going to be won is by the mobilization of the bases. I think that the way that this race is going to be won is by all the Republicans turning out or all the Democrats turning out. I think that's kind of the way it works. I think the Democrats have a horrible chance because what President Trump did in that first debate, and I'm sorry, there's a lot of people who are going to disagree with me. I think he was a genius the way he handled the first debate. I'm not one of those guys that would look at the way that the demeanor that he carried himself in. I think that he was at war. I think what he did was on purpose. I think that he didn't want to give Joe Biden some time to fumble or stumble. I think he wanted Joe Biden to be quick. I think he wanted Joe Biden to have some time to be able to make the responses. And what he did, and he was effective, he was perfect at it, was he accomplished his mission, and his mission was divide and conquer. He got Joe Biden to go on the record and to say every kind of thing that the hard-leaning left would never want to hear. He got Joe Biden to say, I don't support the Green New Deal, even though the Green New Deal is actually on his website. And Kamala Harris is the sponsor of the Green New Deal. He went on record to actually say very nice things about Judge Barrett. As a matter of fact, I'll take it a step further. When you talk about, the current Supreme Court nominee, he even refused to say anything bad because he recognized in the polls that she was actually popular. Well, that's a real problem with the hard left. The hard left hates the fact that he wouldn't do anything of a sort. So he literally, President Trump, in leading him the way he did in that first debate, literally led him down the road of dividing a party. And I think that that's exactly what he did. He was very good at it. He started, in essence, a civil war within the Democratic Party. And I can promise you this, unlike the Republicans, when the Democrats are divided, the Democrats don't show up and vote. When the Republicans are divided, and they tend to be a little bit more polarized, they tend to want to speak a little bit more at the polls. So they tend to show up a little bit better. So the whole idea behind what he did, I think, was pretty smart. Now, the fact that Pence came in and handled things the way he handled them, and I was very proud by the way he handled things, he solidified the positions of the Trump administration. And not only did he solidify the positions of the Trump administration, he made strong the positions of the base, because the base actually looks at things in the exact same way. There's no division amongst the base of the Republican Party. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a few knuckleheads in the Republican Party, the Mitch Romneys and some of these other, the Mitt Romneys, I said Mitch, sorry, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Mitt Romney, some of these other guys. But what's interesting even with that is I think Mitt Romney is going to mobilize around this current Supreme Court nominee, because even he can't get away with doing exactly what he probably would do if he could get away with it. So the problem, you go back and you look at this, and I will say that I am a little disappointed in the fact that the Israel peace deal wasn't something that was a big part of discussion, that some of those things that should be, they should really be proud of the many accomplishments that they've made. And of course, Kamala Harris did exactly what Kamala Harris was coached to do, and that was she just beat up on the handling of the coronavirus. But I can promise you that's also going to completely backfire on her. It's going to completely backfire because the more and more you talk about it, the more and more you begin to realize, wait, your plan that you're proposing is plagiarism. You've plagiarized the president. And of course, if you remember, Mike Pence made that very clear. Hey, listen, it sounds like plagiarism to me, but that's okay. That's territory old Joe's familiar with. So it was really good. And I have to say that the first presidential debate, very well done. Divide and conquer. He did a good job. I can promise you, when you look at the patterns that President Trump has established within his debates, especially when he starts getting a single candidate that he's coming against, he is a master at doing this. He literally lowers the expectations of his opponent. He did this with Hillary. He lowered the expectation of his opponent for the first debate. Hillary comes in and pretty much does what everybody thinks was a crushing, was a complete beatdown. And then what does Trump do? He comes in and literally dominates her after the next, or, in the subsequent debates. And I believe that he's setting up Joe for this same exact thing because he knows that the Democrats are too thick-headed to see through it all. And he's doing exactly what he was going to do. You wait and see. On this next debate, he is going to be so completely concerted in his efforts. He's going to be so calculated in the way that he speaks that you'll be blown away. You're going to think you're looking at a completely different president, but he had it planned that way all along. I really believe that.
Yeah. So I look at this, I'm hoping that you are right, because we also have the two Americas. And it's very concerning for me. I love what Trump has accomplished. It's not in what he says, it's what he has actually done. He has proven to be faithful to what he said he was going to do, which That's are right. Things that I stand for. I really appreciate those things about him. So obviously, I do hope that Trump wins. But let's talk about the two Americas.
Yes.
I see one going to America that this world still needs. And that is why we see people that are supporting Trump in various parts of the world. They're supporting him in Europe. They're supporting him in Canada. They're supporting him in Israel. And what you have, Puerto Rico, the outgoing governor in Puerto Rico? Is that who it is in Puerto Rico? That came out in support of Trump and said you need to vote for President Trump. And you have she said that on Telemundo. Did you see it?
I did not know. I wasn't aware of that.
That's it. Yeah. So you need to give something there.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah, so you see this is just another evidence that we go with this program without edits. So you sure? You got your dog over there?
I'm so sorry. Cheryl, check your cell. I'm so sorry, man.
Hey,
I don't know if you heard it, but people are banging on my door and they're ringing the doorbell and all that kind of stuff. I'm so sorry. People are not paying attention to me.
Did you hear a cat in the background with me?
I don't know.
There's a cat in here that's a cat in here that keeps meowing.
This is going to be one of those special shows, man. I got to tell you.
And I'm in the basement, but I promise I'm coming out, Lord willing, as soon as we're done. Hey, so back to this. I forgot what we were even talking about. Oh, the two Americas.
Yes.
So I see this going in a way. There is support. It's talking about in Puerto Rico on Telemundo. The Puerto Rican, I think it's the governor of Puerto Rico, came out and said, you need to vote for Trump. And so she's been hit by the left. She's delirious. She doesn't know what she's talking about. How could she be saying this kind of thing? How did Trump manipulate her to say this kind of thing? But we are watching this because the reality of it is, if America goes the way that Antifa wants, that the left wants, we are going toward socialism. We're going toward what I would even say a Marxism, aren't we?
Yeah. So Tom, you're 100% right in this. We have a major problem that we're actually facing right now in the nation. And the problem is twofold, right? You have a group of people right now who say that it's absolutely acceptable to call right wrong and wrong right. We've been talking about this, the road of two Americas, right? The problem is if we go ahead and we walk away from the current situation that we're in by not voting for the president, I can promise you we're going to be voting for people who are hard left socialists. People don't think about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is an absolute disaster. She's a complete joke. We want to focus on her for just 1 second. For the last 4 months, these knuckleheads, and forgive me for saying that, they haven't condemned a single ounce of violence. I can give you a great example. You have a man, talk about the Me Too movement for just a second. You have a man back east who rapes a woman. Upon completion of him raping a woman, he comes at a police officer with a knife. The police officer does what he's supposed. And Kamala Harris goes over there to visit not the officers. She goes over there to visit the guy and basically says, I'm proud of you. Those are her words. I'm proud of you. Yes, I'm proud of a rapist that raped a woman, right? Effectively raped a woman and then attempted to kill a police officer. And then at that same time, we have 2 Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies that are hanging out in Compton. They're doing their job. They get ambushed by, forgive me for saying this, by an animal that ends up shooting them both, tries to kill them both, tries to execute them both. Their will to live was stronger than the fact that they would actually die. And that same woman who would go and say, I'm proud of you, and would go ahead and try to murder the police, all of that same woman wouldn't even so much as comment on those police officers. The president of the United States picked up the phone and talked to them. How are you doing? What's going on? That is the kind of world that we're living in. And it's getting to the point where it's getting uglier and uglier and uglier. And I've talked about this before. We talk about the ridiculousness of the assertions that the police officers are hunting over the black man. I want everybody to know that this Black Lives Matter movement and all this other racist garbage that's going on, it's a narrative that's trying to manipulate people into going into a place of disorder so that their mindset changes, the way they look at things completely change. And it goes back to the discussion we had about critical race theory, about how destructive it is, because that's exactly what it does. It changes the mindset of the people that are actually listening to this and adhering it, and it makes what they're doing acceptable. This is a woman. Listen, the Biden campaign, there were 13 members of the Biden campaign that contributed money to a fund that bails out hardened criminals. One attempted to murder a police officer. And they have no problem doing that kind of a thing. They don't make any quirks about it. This is exactly what they do. You want to talk about law enforcement, you want to talk about the issue with law enforcement, think this through for just a second. If you look at 2019 alone, there were 385 million contacts that were made with U.S. citizens by police in the country. 385 million. Of the 385 million, there were 1,000 officer-involved shootings. Of the 1,000 officer-involved shootings, there were 40 of them that involved unarmed suspects. Of the 40 that were unarmed, you want to know how many were black? 9. And of the 9 that were unarmed black people, 6 of them attempted to go for the weapon of the police officer. And of the 6, there were 3. I put out 4 here. There were 3 that actually were caught on video doing so. And if you really think about it, you run around and you say, oh, well, the black man is being hunted down by the police officer. A law enforcement officer today in this country right now, and this is a conservative number, is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black person than a black person is to be killed by a law enforcement officer. And think about this for just 1 second. When you're talking about the population problem and you're talking about what they call the population problem, and you're talking about the fact that that's going on, think about how absurd that is. 18.5 more times likely to be killed by a police officer, and they represent 13% of the population. And think about this for just another second. The real problem are 2 major things. 3,000 homicides a year. 3,000 of black men killed by other black men. 98% by other black men. 78% of the families right now in black homes have no fathers. How about the fact that we are aborting 1,500 black babies every single day? 13% of the population are black people in this country, and 50% of the abortions that are taking place are black people. You tell me, what's the problem? Is it the police? Black Lives Matter doesn't care about black people. Joe Biden doesn't care about black people. The Democratic Party doesn't care about black people. They're the most racist organization in this country. They don't care about law and order. And let me just make another comment. The real black community, the real African-American community, people that are really living in whatever state of being, it could be from the ghettos to the very wealthy areas, every single one of them want police around them. Every single one of them. This is getting ridiculous. And here's my thing to every single one of those woke pastors that are out there that continue to propagate this nonsense, that continue to further this ugly message. You got to repent. Knock it off, because none of it is true. Here's the bottom line, and I'll say this with the two Americas. It's up to you. If you're a Christian, you have no business voting for the Democratic Party. You have no business. I'm sorry. They are supporting abortions. They are supporting the defunding of police officers and police departments. They have no desire to see law and order take place. Joe Biden just recently threatened that things would continue to get worse. The riots are going to get even worse if he wasn't voted into office.
Yeah. I mean, what a threat that is. You look at that, you go, this is unbelievable. Hillary says, don't concede the election. It looks like a coup. I think we've talked about that recently.
Many of those attempts.
I look at what's happening with the movement with BLM. It is being used. It's been invented and then used to manipulate culture and society. And behind that, you also have what the millennials have been taught when they went to college. And you have these radical left teachings that came, and they've gone to college, and then they hear these types of things. Listen, if the BLM really cared about Black communities, they'd be putting money into Black communities. They'd be pouring money into families to build up real families within the Black community that would be strong. They'd be going after abortion. They don't care about any of those things. I believe the Democratic Party cares about the Black community in the sense that they want to manipulate them and they're being used for a different agenda, and that's disturbing.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Democratic Party say they care about Black people. Sure, they care about Black people because they want people in their plantation. They want people to fill up their plantation. I'm not going to apologize for making that statement. Back in the day, the plantations were as they were. You had slaves in the plantations. They just changed the plantations. They're calling them Chicago. They're calling them Inglewood. They're calling them the ghetto. That's exactly what it is. And forgive me for saying that, but it's true. And I don't understand why the Black community continues to glorify the garbage that continues to come out. The bottom line is each and every single one of them are like us. We are all fearfully and wonderfully made. Throw away the lie of white privilege. Throw away the lie and the garbage of Black Lives Matter Inc. doesn't even care about Black lives. They are they really, really, truly are more of a Marxist and gay and lesbian movement. That's really what they are. And they really don't even care about the gay and lesbian community, to be honest with you. What they stand for is the destruction of the nuclear family. They've made it very, very clear. They just recently removed it on their website.
Yeah, they did.
Talk about chanting, say their name, say his name. That's a big thing that they do now. It's part of the whole critical race theory thing, but say their name. You want to know why they demand that the name of the dead person that was killed be chanted? It's because it's a demonic witchcraft practice. Yeah. Patrice, whatever her name was, she was on video, literally, talking about this demonic practice. It's an ancient, demonic, witchcraft-oriented practice, and nobody wants to see through it. Everybody wants to talk about, my white privilege, and I gotta relinquish. What a lie. This country was not founded in 1619. Yeah. This country was founded in 1776. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution was a 25-year, at best, referendum on slavery. Yes, it took a little bit longer to abolish slavery. The Republican Party was an abolitionist movement. There was not a single Republican that actually owned a slave. And by the way, I have news for you. This is super, super important. News flash. Okay, there were no other nations that had no slaves. The United States of America was the first nation that actually did full abolition of slavery. And by the way, the number one purveyor of slaves today is the same purveyor of slaves back then, and that is the Arab Muslim. Go read about the Barbary Coast.
Yeah.
Go think through that for just a second. You'd be really surprised. It's crazy, especially for these people that are part of the Black Muslim movement. They love Farrakhan. You know the reason why they love him? Not because he's Black. Lots of Muslims hate Black people. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's Black. It's because he's raising the profile of Islam, and Islam is all about deception in a country where it cannot be overtaken by force. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing Marxism. We're seeing the predominance of the Islamic movement. We're seeing death hate, terror. We're seeing murder to our babies. We're continuing to see lockdowns because we're going to see them for the next year or so. We're going to see all of that stuff and the church being targeted and law enforcement being targeted. Vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You want to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Vote for Trump.
That's exactly the direction all of this is going. It's alarming. These things are intentional. It's about the destruction of America. You talked about the video of what's her name, Patrice, whatever her name is, that began Black Lives Matter. I had that video posted on my website for a couple of weeks. You can see it where she's saying this, but this fits in with 1 Timothy chapter 4. In the last days, there'll be doctrines of demons. And when you look at that passage, James, that is a passage that is spoken of to people who have gone to church, been part of a church, pastors teaching, and they are teaching doctrines of demons.
That's right.
I believe we are living in that day. There is such great deception. And again, I'm most disturbed by what is happening within the church. And the last thing I want to bring up is the direction that all of this is going to also go. There's an attempt to destroy America. I'm hoping it's the rapture and that's what happens. But there is anti-Semitism that is increasing. And I did a program with Olivier Melnick the other day about this, but we talked briefly about what's going on in New York City. It's developed in the last couple of days, and now de Blasio, the mayor of New York, plus Cuomo, the governor of New York, have made it very clear they're very troubled by the Haredi community. They're basically now blaming them, is the way I'm taking it, blaming the Jewish communities in New York for the spike in coronavirus. They don't blame their own. Listen, they're not allowed to meet for your funeral. They're not allowed to meet at the synagogues. They don't want to meet it for anything, but you're okay to protest and riot in New York City, destroy the city, but the Jews can't meet. And it looks to me like, I don't know, I'm troubled by the direction I see these things. And de Blasio, that's not even his name. De Blasio is a Marxist. He got part of his training, I think it was when he was younger, over in Cuba. He was raised by communist parents or socialist parents. And you look at that, he changed his name. I can't remember what it was, but you look, that's his worldview is communism. Yeah, and communism is not favorable to the Jews, never has been favorable to the Jews. Right. And I'm disturbed by what I see going, and people are saying it's not anti-Semitic. Listen,
it is anti-Semitic.
I'm watching the direction of this, and it's bothersome.
Yeah, it's demonically inspired anti-Semitism. Actually, every form of anti-Semitism in existence is demonically inspired. And again, that's what it goes. When the church is not allowed to gather, when the church chooses to comply with what they say are the governor's orders in the name of Romans 13, which is a disgusting, gross misappropriation of that passage, then the churches don't keep people honest. The churches we are the preserving influence. And so in New York, there's not a lot of churches that are gathering. And so, of course, all these people are going to run amok. I mean, think about the arrogance of Chris Cuomo. Think about that. Think about the fact that, you've got a guy who gets the coronavirus, runs around, coughs in people's face, curses them, the whole kind of thing. And he literally starts cursing the brains out of the president because he took his mask off in the White House, his residence.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
But this is all demonically inspired, and we need to pray for our nation. We need to pray for our president, and Christians, get out there and vote. And let me tell you another thing, Christians, go to a church that's open right now. Go to a church that's open. If your church is not open, vote with your feet and walk away. Yeah. You need to gather. The body of Christ needs to gather. It's so important.
Yeah. We need, I'm glad you reminded everybody of that, James. Both of those things, you need to vote. Would like to encourage, if anybody out there watching, if you have influence with maybe your own children or grandchildren or kids, listen, talk to them about the truth. And if they're old enough to vote, get them to vote, but give them the truth. Have them look at the Bible. It's not hard to vote right if you just stick to the Bible. The Bible is very clear, James, you brought it up. How could somebody vote Democrat in today's society? The Democrat Party of today is not the Democrat Party of 40 years ago or 50 years ago.
See, that's funny to me. Everybody says that. I actually don't even agree with that. I think
you don't agree with that. So you look at JFK. What do you? 40 years ago. I look at JFK. I think he was different than what you're seeing today.
But I don't think that he represented the heart of the Democratic Party. I mean, you really think about it. JFK. There's a lot of people that actually believe. There's a lot.
This is true.
Yeah, because Lyndon
I understand what
Johnson
you're
was
saying.
really the daddy. He was a great
You're right.
representation
You know
of the Democratic Party. He was a great
You are right.
representation.
And
You
the
know,
KKK had the major
course.
support from the.
Come on.
You're absolutely
the
right.
KKK back then was the military arm of the Democratic Party, and now the new military arm of the Democratic Party is Antifa.
Yeah.
Remember, Joe Biden said, "Oh, it's just a thought." Really, it's a thought.
Yeah.
So all of these thoughts are killing police officers around our nation. All of these thoughts.
You're right. You're right. I stand corrected. I've never said that to you before on air.
Yeah, you said it all the time. You say it all the time. I say to you too.
That
maybe not on air, but no. Like you're right. I was wrong.
Right. I'll say you're right. I never say I'm wrong.
Yeah, no.
I'm right. Yeah, I do stand correct. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah,
thank you.
We change each other's minds all the time, bro.
Yeah, we do. We've had some interesting conversations, which has been fantastic.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to go. We got to go here again soon. We're pretty much done with our time, but I've been asked again for another explanation on the fig tree. From I want to go. I know, but I want to go there because I think it gives some more clarity on why. When you look at the prophetic passages for people right now that are watching about what is a fig tree, you'll have to wait and see that program. We'll talk about it prophetically, what the Bible has to say. But James, I look at this also, I can't agree with you enough. Get out there and vote righteously. And then also,
that's right.
I believe we are in a state, we have doctrines of demons. We have some many demonically influenced things that are happening in this world right now. The Bible did say it would be that way in the last days. I mean, how else can you describe the delusion and deception that's going on? And the people that are actually believing these things is disturbing. And to reiterate one last thing, get into a church. Find a church that is open. Go to that church. There's not a lot of them, but here we are months and months later after a 2-week lockdown. And so many churches, they're still saying, you know what, you shouldn't meet. Yet we have a commandment, Romans chapter 10, verse 25, do not forsake the meeting together as some have done, but all the more as you see the day approaching. That's a commandment for the days we live in. All the more as you see the day approaching, be sure to meet. That is not talking about meeting with your biological family. You already do that.
That's right.
It is meeting with your spiritual family. You need to get together. It's a commandment from the Lord. And the Lord doesn't say you do it because it's easy. He says you do it. And in many countries of the world, it has never been easy, and they still do it with the threat of persecution or loss of life. We have a coronavirus that is very, listen, it's not nearly as deadly as we were told it was going to be. The evidence is there, and people still won't go to church. Go to church. Get involved with the church.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Just one other quick thing, kind of a mental note to make. Some of you may know this, but tomorrow, so Saturday, nationwide, we are going to be making a statement on supporting of our police officers. In every single state, we're going to be having a gathering called Bridge the Blue. The biggest gathering that'll be taking place in the state of California is going to be in Rancho Santa Margarita. I'm actually going to be there. I'll be opening up and closing that. We're doing one in every single state in the union. I think the one that they're doing in Washington is actually going to be at the Law Enforcement Memorial, but we're really excited about that. And we're going to be making a statement nationwide that basically says, hey, there's a lot larger crowd than you think that are actually supporting law enforcement officers. So if you can't be at one of those events, you can go online and grab it. Just type in Bridge the Blue, and I think that there will be some material that you can get on what's going on there. And I think that it's really important that we stand and support our law enforcement officers. We've had more ambushed and killed this year already than we have in many other years in the past. And I think it seems as though people are being given a license to do that. We're going to make a proclamation that that isn't acceptable. So please mark your calendars for that. It'll be tomorrow if you can participate in it. Also, I want to say that if you are so inclined, we'd love for you guys to subscribe. You can go to my YouTube channel, Calvary Chapel Signal Hill. Me and Tom have a YouTube channel together. That's A Real Hope with Tom and James. And then, of course, you can go to my Instagram, which, of course, is at James Cadiz. And then, of course, on Facebook, we have the church Facebook, Calvary Chapel Signal Hill. And I know that this YouTube channel that you're watching things on, very, very important, Hope for Our Times. We really, really want to break 100,000 before the end of the year. I think it'd be great to see that happen. And the more people we get to reach, the more people subscribe, the more people we get to reach. And we're just looking forward as we see the day approaching. So please subscribe.
Amen. The message that we have is what people need right now, even if they don't want to hear it. It is the truth.
That's right.
HopeForOurTimes.com is also my website too, where I have articles that are posted every day and videos like this. James, back to the event, Rancho Santa Margarita. This is the first I heard about it.
Yep.
So no, that is great. So that's in Southern California. Is there anything?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's just, I'm thankful for that. I want to hear more about it. So I'll have to text you.
Yeah, they're going on everywhere, and this is the one that's going on in Southern California. So I'm very excited about it. I had one of the local police officers contact me. Well, not local to us, but one of the guys further south that contacted me, and he always watches our videos, and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you be there." And so I said, "Oh yeah, I'm in." So I'm very excited to be a part of that. Looking forward to getting behind it, and just learning to educate people about how important it is to have our law enforcement around us, and how to keep people supporting them.
That is fantastic. Thank you very much, James. Great having you with me today.
All right, Tommy.
I will be returning from Nebraska. I'll be leaving the basement here in just a minute, but it's great that with technology we can do this. I miss you, bro.
Yeah, me too, brother. We'll see each other soon enough at the Prophecy Conference coming up.
We have Prophecy Conference coming up November 8th, the Sunday after the election, and we've had people from all over the country that have emailed us, said they're going to be flying in. So we're going to have to make room for people. I don't know how we're going to do it, but it's going to be a great conference Sunday, November 8th. You are first up to bat that day too, so it's going to be terrific.
That's right. Yep.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
Bye.